certain black people. They find these black people who they make into our leaders, and they put them out here in the forefront, and then whatever whatever issue they want to tie us into, we fall for it hook, line, and sinker. So that's a big issue for us. Until we start understanding that we don't need a leader, let the movement itself be the leader, and let's just work together.
Yeah, Doctor.
That makes sense.
Dr. Julia Raw said before she passed in 2019 that we don't need any more leaders. She said because within the black community, we all are leaders within ourselves. So we can affect change if we just take that role of leading, within our own communities. I think that's something that we need to publish and promote throughout the entire nation, that we need to have each and every individual community begin to take a leadership role if we're going to establish as black men. And I think it's important that black men have a political power base in this country. Too many decisions are made about the direction the country should go in without our input. We get inputs from everybody else, but we don't have anything when it comes to us to say. And some of those leading blacks, as she would call them, those leading blacks, but not black leaders, but those leading blacks have gotten into positions to influence, but not create change. And I think that's where we're struggling as black people. And, to me, being black in America, I look at myself as being a man that's full of passion, a man that's full of desire, a man that has goals and dreams, but yet I see those goals and dreams being limited to what America says I can do as a black man. Because if I step outside of the political guidance of America, then I become radical. I become targeted. I become hated. And it's unlike what happens to other people, because that does happen to other groups of people. We saw that with Marjorie Greene in the Senate, how radical she began to talk. But when it comes to us, though, our radicalism is simple as saying, I'm black and I'm proud. Our radicalism is simple as saying, hell no, we won't take it anymore. We're tired of seeing our young men, women being brutally murdered and killed in the streets by those who are supposed to protect us. When we begin to speak out against things of that nature, then we become, the malcontents of society. We need to change that. We need to find a way so that when we speak, like Teddy Roosevelt said, I speak softly, but I carry a big stick, big political club. And that club affects and change and power. And I think black men in America have lacked that ability to stand up and have that voice, to say to the establishment, no, this is wrong. This is not how it should be. This is how it should be. And I think if we had that political power, movements like Black Lives Matter or any other social movement wouldn't really have to exist, because if we had that political power, we would influence policing in this country, or we would have a part in influencing policing in this country. We would have a part in influencing wealth in this country. And I agree that it has been done purposely. There is a fear in America that if the playing field is leveled, certain people or certain groups will lose their potential to gain wealth, will lose their place in society. But that shouldn't be an excuse to stop black people, and in particular black men, from rising to a point of power over their own communities, so that when things happen, we have control over that. We don't have to sit by and let our communities be stormed and raided by outside forces constantly. And I was listening to Malcolm Nance the other day, and Malcolm Nance made the statement that America is in for a long night of insurrection. And what he meant by that, what happened in the Capitol, was just a small tip of the iceberg of what's to come. What alarms me about what's to come is that if that power block, political block in America decides that black people have advanced too much, too soon, they will have the ability to attack us and maybe even take that away from us. We are certainly defenseless right now to defend our own communities. if they were to, let's just say, randomly begin to to commit acts of violence, we as black people will have to depend on the very government that has kept us in this small circle to protect us. And sad to say it, but also truthful, many of those politicians within that government circle that we look to feel the same way about us as those racist groups do anyway. So the question, what kind of protection can we really get from the system? The only protection we can really be assured of and feel comfortable with is that if we are able to protect ourselves. You brothers agree with that one?
Yeah, we have to protect ourselves. I mean, we can't like the way that the system is currently set up. We cannot depend on the government, and we can't trust the government. We can't trust these judges. I don't know if y'all know, but these judges, man, they pretty much letting these people off from this whole Capitol insurrection. A lot of these people are going home. You know, bails were set very low. So yeah, we can't trust the system. Again, if we don't start working together more politically, economically, you know, they gonna wipe us out. They gonna wipe us out because that's what they really want to do anyway. Cause the thing is this, like, if we really put our heads together and think about it, we have a little leverage because, you know, like you said, Irvin, I was hearing what you were saying as far as like if we say we're black and we're proud, or if we, you know, say anything against what's going on with the injustices, we're looked at as radical. This whole Capitol insurrection, that was the most radical thing I've ever seen in my lifetime. The most radical thing I've ever seen in my lifetime. Now, this was a group of white folks who were upset about Trump not getting back in, or whatever the case may be, and they were angry, and they did what they do all the time. When they don't get their way, they have tantrums. So that's my thing. I don't want to hear anything about any more being patriotic or patriotism. The armed forces, the military, everybody should be upset about this. And another thing, that bombing that happened. Where did that bombing happen? Was that in Georgia? I can't remember where that bombing happened.
Tennessee, I believe. I believe it was in. You talking about where the bomb went off in front of the AT&T building?
Yeah, and where, you know, they just kind of swept that up under the rug.
Yeah, that was in Tennessee.
That whole little situation. Yeah. So I mean, they continually just show us their hand, and we, you know, and we just sit back and just watch this stuff and wait on one of these so-called leaders that we have to tell us what to do next. And we got to stop doing that.
And I think that's the danger, because, you know, yeah, like that small bombing in Tennessee that happened in front of the AT&T building. Suppose they were to bring a van like that into our neighborhoods and let that bomb explode in our neighborhood, which we will become the target, I believe, of the insurrectionists if they don't get their way now. If they have their way, I think they would like to see black people put back into a state of the 1950s. That's just me, and I could be wrong, and I don't want to, you know, come off as a know-it-all because I don't know it all, but I do believe what's happening today, and this is what's got me really, really concerned about our ability to have power to protect ourselves, to protect our women, to protect our children. There's a small black militia group, I believe it's out of Atlanta, and I can't remember the name of it, but they were videotaped, and I have videotape of them marching, and the leader was saying to the racist groups, "Hey, we're here, we're ready. You know, if you want to duke it out in the streets, let's duke it out." Now, I'm not advocating violence, and I don't want us to get to the point where we have to duke it out, but I do want us to get to the point where we have the ability to say, if you attack us, we'll attack you back. We will defend ourselves. And I think Malcolm X said it better than anybody could have said it. And I think that meaning reigns true today, by any means necessary. but we need to put that into action and not just into words. We need to find a way to build that political power. And I think Brother Baker talked about having information to put it in perspective, having that information. And Brother Baker, what kind of information do you suggest we need or we should have in order to do this?
Well, I'm glad you asked that question, because that's one of the next ancestors whose name I wanted to raise, Dr. Edward Robinson. Dr. Edward Robinson, he designed a whole project, some media, some film, some audio materials based on the concept of African Genesis. Dr. Robinson, speaking of the type of information, and being that this is like it's not Carter G. Woodson is another, but Dr. Robinson, he said that there's one pivotal piece of information that we need to help us overcome the situation that we're in this country and in the world. And what to sum it up, he basically said it is what I call heritage insecurity. And like Brother Ernest said, we don't have an identity. You know, like you said, Brother Wainwright, slogans such as Black Power or I'm Black and I'm proud. Dr. King pointed out, you've never heard the Chinese say yellow power, but they have power. And they don't necessarily have the military capacity to defeat the U.S. Army, those that live in America, right? We know they do have, in Chinatown, they do have some means of self-defense to defeat the American Army. But at the same time, they don't suffer the type of aggressive violation of human rights in terms of physical murder, because that's one of your most basic human rights, is the right to life. And we talk about political power, and I think we can use as a point of reference the definition of power, which means the ability to actualize your purpose. Power as the ability to actualize your purpose. The opposite of the ability to actualize your purpose is captivity or slavery. So like you said, are we basically still enslaved? Because we can't actualize our purpose. First, we don't even know what our purpose is because we don't know who we are. You know, so that being step one is discovering and making up our mind who we are. Because like you said, you can have the information, but what do you do with the information? Do you use the information to empower your community, or do you use the information, I guess, to maybe benefit individually or some other way, I guess? But that is a frame of reference. First, what is our identity? Who are we? You know, and I would say that the Chinese don't say yellow power because they know they're Chinese. And if you look at, and another name that I would like to raise is Malcolm X. A lot of people, they reference Malcolm before his journey to Mecca in Africa. A lot of people don't know that Malcolm spent more time in Africa than he spent in Mecca. He met with over 8 African leaders. And one of the things, one of the legacies that Malcolm left for us, when we do the research and study and do a critical analysis, we find that Malcolm formed the Organization of African American Unity. He gave us an instrument. I think this is one of the things that the Black Lives Matter movement is missing. Malcolm, seeing that part of our power base is the fact that we are the majority in the world. If we are willing to, as Brother E said, unite with each other. You know, we have a power base that's large. You know, when you talk about the amount of people of color or black people or people of African descent in the Caribbean, in Africa. Malcolm wanted to unite all of those people and take the case of black people to the World Court of Justice. That was his last work. You know, when he was killed doing that work. And because we don't really do what Carter G. Woodson wanted us to do with Black History Month, that is to dive deeper into our history as a source of power. We don't know, you know, that was the last work of Malcolm, you know, and so that I think that's number one. That's the start is to gain that historical knowledge that empowers us, and for us to do a critical analysis to decide what is that historical. We need a frame of reference, something that we all can agree on, because like Brother E said, it's all kinds of schools of thought. But we're going to have to draw a line of demarcation somewhere to say, you either with us or you're not with us. At some point, you know, in order for us to unify, we're going to have to decide on what are the things that cause us, that cause disunity.
Well,
to be
I
able
think,
to have an honest discussion.
Yeah, I think that's an excellent point, is having that foundation, something to build on. And do you guys remember the Black Panthers 10-point platform? That could be a good place to start. I'm going to read you real quickly just those 10 points, and then we can talk about it. The first one was, we want freedom. We want power to determine the destiny of our black community. We want full employment for our people. We want an end to the robbery, to the capitalists of our black and oppressed communities. We want decent housing, fit for shelter of human beings. And it goes on but this is the Black Panthers 10-point platform of power. And I think that we need to build that platform. That should be the basis that we all start from, with that platform. Because there's certainly been major discrimination in all of those areas that the Black Panther Party talked about. The first one, we want freedom. We want power to determine the destiny of our black community. We need to begin to establish that today. And I think that's a good foundation. I would encourage everybody, if you haven't read the Black Panthers 10-point platform, get a copy of it, read it. It's on the internet. Also, look at what the Black Panther Party actually said they believed in. You know, we believe that black people will not be free until we are able to determine our own destiny. So until we gain this power as black people in this country, we will not be able to determine our own destiny. Our destiny will yet be in the hands of agitators and outsiders. And when I say agitators and outsiders, we got...
So brother Wayne, right now to cut you off. So I think that's a point of that we have to agree on, the fact that we are powerless. And not that we don't have the potential for power, but that we are in fact in our current situation not able to decide our own destiny.
Yeah, I mean, if anybody disagree with that, I don't understand how they could disagree with the fact that we are powerless, because it's evident throughout society that we
lack. Let me add this in. Not to cut you guys off. First and foremost, we have to really understand and realize that we're kept in subjugation through the laws that they have on the books. Okay, and the only way that we collectively can get anything done as far as these laws on the books is we have to have a nation. Calling ourselves black is not a nation. That's too ambiguous. Just being, you know, we have a lot of immigrants coming from all over, you know, the world with melanin in their skin. So would they be included in this? You know, so we have to develop and have a nation. Any group of people that have gotten any laws passed or any so-called reparations are nations. Okay, the Japanese, when they were put into, they called them internment camps. They weren't nothing but concentration camps during World War II. They got reparations because they are a nation of people. Same thing with the German Jews. They were a nation of people, and they got money. Same thing with and I call them the Mongoloid Indians. Same thing with them. They had nations. Now, whether we believe, if they co-opted our stuff, that's a whole nother thing we're gonna get into one week. But they're a nation, okay? We don't consider ourselves a nation because we go by too many different names. People of color, black people, African American.
Yeah, I agree
like,
with that.
what are we? Again, that goes back to us not having an identity.
Yeah.
So they keep this confusion up with us purposely because they don't want us to know who we really are.
Yeah.
Okay?
Yeah.
So until we can figure out that we are a nation of people, and again, I'm talking about the people who can trace their genealogy back to this country, nowhere else. Until we can figure out that we are a nation of people, we're going to continue to be confused. We're going to continue to not work together, and they're going to keep doing the same thing to us.
Yeah.
Because you got to remember, at one point in time, we weren't even called black people. We was called Negroes. We was called, people of color. Some of our lighter complected brothers and sisters was called mulattoes. So it goes deep down the rabbit hole, man. And again, it goes back to us not having an identity and not having a nation. So until we can get that, because I agree with you, Irvin. I used to be the minister of information for the new Black Panther Party for self-defense in Rockford. And so I knew that 10-point plan pretty well. Don't know it anymore, but I knew it pretty well at one point in time, and it's great. But
yeah. I think
just one small political party.
Yeah, I think you said so much. You said so much in that because black. This is Dr. John Hendrick Clark. Black only tells us what we are. It doesn't tell us who we are, and I agree with that. So, I think also a good idea if we would take that Black Panther Party, that 10-point platform, and make that into some type of legal constitution for us. Maybe we can begin as a people to rally around that constitution. I think that might be a good way to get some things going in our communities if we take that whole doctrine and make that into some type of constitutional meaning towards us to build us as a people. And we can negate the ideology of where we come from in terms of nationality, but we can look at where we're at right now today collectively in this country. Whether we came from Africa, whether we were already here, the point is we're here today in America, and as a people, as a group, men in our group lack political power in this country. That has got to change. And we've got to find common ground. So maybe the platform...
But what do you...
I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No, I was gonna say so, but what do you guys think about? Again, because I'm all about reducing confusion. Okay, I'm about reducing confusion. This is a question for me to both of you. So what if we're going to use the term black to identify who we are, and again, if we're talking about politics and about getting laws passed or laws taken off the books that affect us specifically, so do we include in our immigrant brothers and sisters who still rep their countries, even though they come over here, they still rep their countries hard? So, like, that's what I'm saying as far as like the confusion is concerned, because they let a lot of immigrants over here, and sometimes and I love my immigrant brothers and sisters, don't get me wrong, but where do we draw the line to say that we are black Americans or whatever we want to call ourselves? Where do we draw the line as far as that is concerned to reduce confusion? as far as like, building a nation or just, understanding and establishing who we are as a people. Those of us who can trace, like I said, trace our people back, to this country.
Yeah, I think that's a good question, and that's a hard one to answer. We could certainly look and see that in this country, if we use that that platform this country's used, we know that immigrants that have come to this country, they have a power block or political power block. The Italians have one, the Ashkenazi Jews have one, but at the same time, they tie that power block into being a pale American. And I use the term pale. When I say pale, I'm talking about what we typically have called white Americans. To me, they're not white, they're pale, because white is a color. I won't go into that. But these other racial groups have come over, and they've tied into the pale mainstream, but yet they have their own separate power. So when we look at black people, I think that immigrants is coming over to this country, be it from Africa, be it from Brazil, be it from, the West Indies. If they are the color black, they need to tie into the black people that's here. They need to tie into our power base. And after they've tied into our power base, then they can create their own individual power bases, but their power bases will always have to come back to the black power base. That's how I think it should go. And I think that once we establish this black power base that we need, then we can begin to move forward as a people. And not only can we move forward as a people, but I think we will begin to see the real true changes that that King realized after the integration process, because King made some very serious statements later on. He told Harry Belafonte that I'm afraid I've integrated my people into a burning house. And another statement King made was, while I was so busy.
Thank you for saying that. Oh my God, thank you for saying that.
And he said another thing he said was, while I was so busy trying to get us to be able to sit at counters and eat with pale people, I failed to get us economical equality with the pale people. When King began to look at the what the government was doing in terms of undergirding its peasant population, while at the same time holding his foot on the necks of black people, when King realized that, King said, that's what the march to the Washington was all about. King said, when we come to Washington, we're coming to get our check. Because King began to realize that integration without political power simply means we're following somebody else's rules. Those rules will govern and dictate to us what we can have, what we can become, but we have no share in power. So King realized that
was. I was just gonna say that was. If people really want to look into what you're saying, all they got to do is just look into Dr. Martin Luther King Jr.'s Poor People's Campaign. The Poor People's Campaign is what got Dr. King killed. If people just look into that got him killed. Because what you're saying, he was talking about the Homesteaders Act. So it goes deep. Yeah, but what you're saying is real powerful, man. Because go ahead. I'm sorry.
He was talking about a piece of the American pie, a real slice of it, and that meant financial and political power. Economical power. When King started talking about, we don't want to sit at the counter with you. We want to own our own businesses. You come to the counter with us. That's what equality is all about. So when King switched over and started talking about that, that's when he became a serious target. Prior to that, he was okay because he was pacifying the demos. He was keeping us, quiet. I remember when the Balmore murder here in Rockford, when the police stormed into the church and shot Brother Balmore. Syverson came on the radio because Jesse Jackson came to town, and Syverson was saying that Jesse Jackson was coming here to stir up the good black folk, that Jesse Jackson had no place in Rockford because we pretty much got the black folks under control here. Now we got this malcontent coming in and causing confusion. So I called in and I said to Syverson, I said, You are saying that Jesse Jackson is causing trouble because you are assuming that the police are not guilty in the act of murder. I said, first of all, you should be happy that Jesse Jackson came because, given the relationship between the policing in this country and the black community, all hell could break loose right now. So you should be happy that Jackson is here trying to get the black people to march and to demonstrate rather than to pick up arms and come at you for that. So I think that when King got along those lines of thinking, that's when it became dangerous. And I think it becomes dangerous to us when we get along that line of thinking, but you know what? It comes down to what, I'm working on a documentary now. It's called the Khalif Bowder Memoriam Project. And what makes Khalif Bowder so outstanding to me, his story is nothing different than what's been happening in this country. But the fact that this young man was willing to sacrifice his body and his life for the cause of justice, that's what makes the difference. We've got to get to the point where we become strong enough as black men to have a backbone to be willing to sacrifice our lives and our bodies for the cause of justice. The difference between leading blacks and black leaders is the biggest difference. Black leaders are dead. They don't live. King, gone. Malcolm X, gone. Medgar Evers, gone. James Murdoch, gone. Fred Hampton, gone. Huey Newton, destroyed with drugs and then gone, But all these leading blacks are still out there, pacifying the demons, still telling us, hey, just take it easy, just be cool. Everything's going to be all right. We've made these wonderful strides. We've come a long way, so we should just be happy, that we were able to make this great progress. Yet and still, though, within this framework of progress, we are the highest statistical failures in this country. We have the highest unemployment rates. We have the highest abortion rates. We have the highest divorce rates. We as a people, we are in this integrated society, in this integrated America, we are frailing. We have nothing, and that's got to change. That's got to change.
And I would say, going back to us deciding or learning who we are, and I want to say as in terms of a solution into, when I say we're powerless, I say that on to one extent, but I know that we have the potential to be one of the most powerful forces on the earth. And I know that the people that dominate this country and the world right now know that as well. If we look at what people call the Western world has been control of world politics for some time now. But when we look at the potential and power that we have, in order to really understand that, like we've been saying, we're going to have to really dive deep into really studying ourselves and looking at, why is it that we are so oppressed in this country? Why is there a need to keep us from actualizing our potential and power? And I know it's because of the fact that we do have the potential to be so powerful, even on an economic level. When you look at, for example, Brother Wainwright, Chrysler and some of the other car manufacturers have slowed down, and it's because there's a shortage in computer chips, microchips, for cars. Microchips come from places where what you call people of color come from. Coffee is the number 2 most popular beverage in the world behind water. It comes from near the equator where black people live. Like many of the resources and many of the things that need to run the world, we should have economic control over.
Right.
And so I think that as a positive thing, that all we have to do is come to the point, and I think part of it, like Dr. Eric Moore Robinson said, that the media has pushed forth the narrative that we as a people come from nothing. That's why we don't want, like you said, people. I remember when I lived in Chicago. I never used the term African American. I didn't use that until I moved to Rockford because the people, a lot of the people in Rockford, they had no frame of reference to think of themselves in those terms. A brother would tell you, man, I'm from Detroit, the Motor City. I'm not from no jungle. I don't come from, but that suppression of that knowledge that in actuality, you come from one of the most potentially powerful economic environments in the world. We should be ruling the world. The Chinese, the Japanese, the Indians, the Arabs, they could not even begin to compete with us on the international level if we had the power over our own resources, our own heritage, and our own history.
I agree. We need to take back that power. Yeah. Looking at the continent of Africa, it is the continent with the richest resources in the entire world. In order to build a nuclear bomb, one key ingredient that you need is uranium. You can't get uranium except in Asia or in Africa. And the largest amounts are in Africa, but yet we as Africans or people of African descent, we don't have a nuclear bomb. And I'm not saying we need one.
And let me say this. Let me not to cut you off. Let me say this as an example to add on to what you're saying. Like, it amazes me that in the way the disinformation, like in the southern states, the Republicans, as Brother E was saying, they claim all this patriotism, but all of the car manufacturers are Asian. You have Honda, but one of the political powers that you never hear the Japanese talking as much as us about electoral politics, but they have more political power than we do because they can say, if you discriminate against us, Toyota is leaving. Yeah. Honda is leaving.
Yeah.
Mitsubishi is leaving.
Yeah.
All of that is leaving.
Yeah.
Based on what how the way you treat us in America, our college students better get in Harvard.
Yeah.
We and you don't see them talking about yellow power. Mm-hmm. I'm yellow, I'm proud. Because they don't have to. Like Dr. King said, that slogan is a sign of powerlessness. That's how I felt about the Black Lives Matter slogan. When I first heard it, I hated it. I was like, hold on. What we call the conscious people, you know this. We've been knowing that. If you just now discover that Black Lives Matter, you way behind.
Mm-hmm.
But sadly enough, people do need to hear that because Black people themselves don't believe that Black life is valuable. Yeah. Back to what I said, the media has taught us we come from nothing. Mm-hmm. If you think you come from nothing, and white people think we come from nothing. Mm-hmm. And that's why Carter G. Woodson said lynching starts in the classroom. He had, he had a little disagreement with Ida B. Wells. I think they both are right, and that's another point. I think we have such a rich heritage that even though, like Brother Wainwright, you said, our leaders have been killed, but their legacy can't be killed.
It can't be killed.
We have so many.
That's true.
It can't be. They didn't left us with the blueprints. All we got to do is study it.
Tie into it. Yeah, that's what I'm.
We don't even have to reinvent the wheel.
Right. Yeah. And here's another thing about Japan. Japan is a closed cartel. In other words, Japan will come over to this country, send their students over to this country, work in this country, but they limit America coming to their country, which I think is a good idea. Don't get me wrong. But it's a closed cartel. In other words, the Japanese are protective of their culture. They don't want it to be re-influenced by Western influences. And I think that's something we need to also become as protective of our culture so that it's no longer influenced by Western culture, Western ideology. So,
we don't think it's worth it. We don't think we have a culture that's worth protecting.
We need to change that. We need to change that because we do. We have a culture that is worth protecting. You talked about
Dr. Clark, Dr. John. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
No, go ahead, brother. Go ahead.
No. I was gonna say just to tie in with the Japanese. Dr. John Henry Clark said after the United States bombed Hiroshima, the Japanese at that point kind of put their heads down, and about 20 years later emerged as the world leader in technology to the point to where the United States depends on them now to this day for technology.
Yeah.
So
Japan would be
take a note from that.
Yeah, Japan would be one of the biggest financiers of this country if it was to enter into a war. Even though Japan has no standing army, they have the money. That's something that speaks volumes. Technology and money. It speaks volumes. That's power. That's something that we as a people, we can develop. We have a culture that's worth protecting. We have a culture that's worth sharing. Brother Antar talked about Ida B. Wells and Carter G. Woodson having disagreements. That is how we learn. That's how we struggle to overcome differences, by having disagreements. That information, let's present W. Du Bois' position versus Booker T. Washington's position, the talented 10 versus a work-based society. Either way it goes, that's information that's worth being taught. So another thing, two things that we have got to gain control of in our own community. One is the media, and number two is our education. We've got to gain control over that if we're going to develop any type of power. We need to develop our own media outlets, tell our own news, tell our own story to our people, and we need to educate our kids with our information, and we need to protect that information, because this society will tell our kids, well, not even tell them, but sometimes they won't even tell them, but they'll lie about the information or not even tell them about the information. Even now when we talk about the Middle Passage, for example, or slavery in this country, in schools now that's sort of being told in a different way. Slaves now are being called immigrants. They immigrated to this country on slave ships, but they had hopes and dreams. They wanted to become great Americans one day, So that sort of takes away from the reality of the sufferings that we endured and that we survived and that we're still here. Now, if you would have...
What's going on right now that is most likely causing for that to happen? There's a big push for us? Reparations. So they want to change the narrative on that slavery because it'll be more justifiable to give us reparations.
Yeah.
So they have to change. They're taking slavery completely out of the books here in Texas, completely.
Oh, wow. Yeah, wow. See, I mean, and I'm not saying that we need to harp on, slavery. I'm not saying that's something we need to do, because slavery was a horrible thing for us. It still has, it has an effect on us to this very day. So, but I don't think we need to hide slavery and say that it didn't happen, because it did. And not only that it happened, but we need to tell the truth about slavery. And we need to address education in this country as a challenge. For example, I am under the impression, and I could be so wrong that I could sound like an idiot, but I believe that in today's world, if men like Thomas Jefferson, George Washington, Ben Franklin, if these men existed in the world today, they would all be in prison for murder, for rape, and kidnapping. I believe that. We need to teach slavery was an illegal. I don't give a damn how this country tries to justify and say that it was a choice, it was a legal institution. No, it wasn't. It never was a legal institution. It is never legal to kidnap, enslave, torture, and murder and rape people. That can never be legal. Only barbarians would call that legal. So we need to present education from that point of view, that what happened to us, it wasn't that we were dumb. It wasn't that we deserved it. It was because we were acted upon by rapacious predators. Illegal acts of torture, rape, murder, sodomy was committed against an innocent people. And then we'll see how America stands up to its founding fathers bullshit. I'm sorry, guys. I get a little personal when it gets to stuff like that, because I believe that it's done major damage to us. But we need to have voices like that. We need to say things like that in order to turn things around. We need to take our black educators. We need to stir up their minds and get them to challenge. We need to write our own textbooks. All the textbooks now that's going on in schools right now are written by the other people. I don't know if we write. Do you guys know if we write any textbooks at all for education? I haven't heard of
Well, the
them.
whole slave narrative was given to us by them.
Yeah. Well, I understand what you're saying, Brother McConnell, and yeah, and I get that, you know. But the thing is, right now, in our schools, they write the textbooks. They can put in them books what they want to put in them. If we were writing the textbooks, and Brother Baker, you were saying that we do write some, but they're not getting included. Is that it, or?
Yeah, they're not widely circulated. Or back to what Brother E said, we can't agree on what you know. It's so many philosophies and schools of thought. We can't even agree on what our own story is. You know, so and that division can be used against us. You know, when it comes to what is taught about us in schools, even what we ourselves teach about ourselves, or how we ourselves see slavery. You know, it's still some black people that believe slavery was actually good for us because they bought into the deception that we came from nothing. Or, you know, even part of our story is that people of you know, black people had been in America before slavery, that we circumnavigated the globe before the Mayflower or before Columbia, and all of that glorious history has to be told for us to even be upset about slavery. A lot of our people think that we were civilized, that we were Christianized, that we had no religion. We was, you know, I think some so-called, you know, conservative black political pundits have been preaching that slavery was a necessary evil.
Yeah, Ben Carson, for example. Yeah. So that's true. But we need to change that narrative, though.
Many of us internalize that, even if we don't know it. Our children,
yeah,
they still fail the Dow test at 75%, and that's what I was going to say. That's what Carter G. Woodson said, that Ida B. Wells, the anti-lynching movement, which is sort of the modern day Black Lives Matter, she was preaching against the lynching and the unlawful killing of black males mainly, and then you know, the lie was, well, they were raping or they were robbing, stealing, killing. And as we know that study history, you were lynched for being excellent. You weren't lynched for being a thief or rapist, or you were lynched for being a business owner, being a decorated soldier coming back from World War II, for trying to defend black women from white men that wanted to use them for sexual pleasure. That's why you were lynched. Ida B. Wells proved that. But what Carter G. Woodson said, well, lynching starts in the classroom. Europeans, Italians, we're taught that we came from nothing. We came from savagery. We came from, you know, barbarism, lack of language. We didn't know how to read. We didn't have a written language. You know, and Carter G. Woodson meant for Black history to counteract that. Yeah. And now, I don't know if you guys knew that Donald Trump so-called officially renamed Black History Month to African American History Month. And he had a very serious strategy when he did that. The point is, you didn't have no history until you came to America and we civilized you. Then you started inventing the stoplight and jumping over hurdles and becoming congressmen. You didn't have no government before that. You know, you didn't do nothing great before that. And that was never the intention. Even our own people, if you go on Facebook, you're hearing them talking about, well, let's talk about the first black man to walk down the street backwards. Or, you know, all types of stuff that has nothing to do with what the purpose of what Black History Month is supposed to establish, that we added to civilization. We built civilizations and cultures before existed.
Right. Yeah. You know, and this show is called the Naked Lunch Club because on this show we expose the truth. And here's an uncovering of truth. When we talk about the lynchings that happened in this country, when we take a look at those photographs, next time you're doing your research, I want you to look at the people in the background of those photos. It wasn't the big-bellied beer Bubba that was lynching black folks. It was the businessman with the necktie on. But not only that, it was a businessman that brought his child to watch. So what happened was, as a result of them watching us being lynched, they developed a mental illness of insensitivity to our struggle, insensitivity to our pain. This is why they can't understand what we go through, because they're insensitive to it. This is another area that we need to work on, is when it comes to our mental health. We need to have our people talking about our mental health, working on our mental health, because the pale mainstream society don't understand the struggles, don't understand our pain. Our history is a history of pain and suffering in this country. It's something that they can't understand because they've been desensitized. We have to take back our educational platform. We need to take Black History Month and we need to uncover the truth. And I think if we do that, we'll stir up the minds, because, you know, contrary to what anybody want to say, there are young black people out there with tremendous brain power. They're very creative. They're very, very intelligent. They just lack guidance. If we get a hold of that population and we teach them the truth, then we're talking about building black power, black political power. Then we're talking about building black economical power for ourselves. It's what it's something that we can't continue to talk about, but we've got to do. Guys, I've also thought about this, and maybe you guys can enlighten me on this. I look at, and I think LeBron James is a terrific person. The things that he has done, you know, but those of us who have been, I'm going to say, catalyzed as athletes and as entertainers and marketed back to the media, who has made the pale people extremely wealthy while we've gotten rich. But those black people who have done that, are they reaching back out to us? Are they building these schools? Because they have the money. They have the resources. But is there maybe a hidden clause that says if you do reach back, we'll find a way to destroy you, like what happened to Bill Cosby? And that's how I think anyway. But we'll find a way to neutralize you. Do you think that's something that's happening to us and maybe an impedance to our developing black power or black political power?
Oh, definitely. You know, these people are controlled, you know, by the dominant society. They are. That's why we can't get any politicians to really support us and to really try to get some policies passed for us. Because, like I said, I believe it was last week, if we don't galvanize and put money behind a politician, why would we expect a politician to really go to bat and support us? We can't expect that. We can't expect for any one of these athletes or really these entertainers to really back us up, because let's be frank, we all watch basketball, we all watch football, but when we look on TV and we look into them stands, into them stadiums, what do we see? We see a sea of pale people. Okay, and we look at these basketball games and we see all them people in the front rows just paying $1,200-$1,300 for them tickets. We don't see too many black people unless they are entertainers. So they know where their money is coming from, and they know who's feeding them. So yeah, like Lil Wayne. Lil Wayne got on TV not too long ago and said he don't think there's racism. You know, call some police officer down there in New Orleans, called him Uncle something, said that. But guess what? Not too long after that, he got pardoned by Trump. So
Right, yeah.
again, they know where their loyalties lie at. So I really wholeheartedly believe that they are controlled.
70% of the NFL players are African American. I would say 95% of ownership is pale American. That's those are some
There you go.
telling numbers. So we have to look at. So man, this has been great, man. I'm so glad you guys are here. Thank you, brother Baker, for coming on and talking with us today. We were talking about what it means to be black in America, and basically we translate into how to build political power, the things that we need to do. It is Black History Month, and something that I would encourage each and every one of us to go out and do our homework. In terms of political power in Rockford, we got Skip Gilbert. He's running for 5th Ward. We have Janessa Wilkins. We have Lisa Jackson and another young lady. I can't think of her name right now. They're all running for, I believe, the 7th Ward. And we have Gerald Albright running for the 11th Ward. Alderman's here in Rockford. The final day of the election is February the 23rd. Get out, vote. Let's make sure we get these people in power. And when it comes to the 7th Ward, you got Janessa, you got the other lady I named Lisa Jackson, you got Joy Irving, and then in the I think the 5th Ward, you got there's another lady, I can't think of her name right now. She's running against Skip, but at any rate, all these guys are on Facebook, by the way, so if you want to reach out and get names and talk to them, I suggest you do that and find out what their intentions are for us. Because if we don't get politicians in that have our interests at heart, then we're just wasting time going out to vote. Because the people we get in want anything for us. If you are in a mental crisis or suicide crisis, you can call the suicide hotline at 1-800-273-8255. For substance abuse issues, you can call 1-800-985-5990. Higher Ground Mental Wholeness Center is back up and going, and our phone number is 779-513-1847. So if you have concerns or issues, you need to talk, you can call any of those numbers. We're there to help you. To my co-host, Brother E, and my guest, Brother Baker, again, thank you so much for being on the show. And with that, we're going to fade out. All right, brethren, thank you so much for joining me today. Let me turn this down a little bit. That's
Yes, sir. Appreciate you, brother.
That's my out intro, fellas.
Oh, yeah.
Brother Baker, thank you so much, man, for joining the show, man. And
thank you for having me. Thank y'all for having me.
yeah, I just hope we can take this information, man, and take it back to the people and start making changes. You know, that's what it's all about, though. But
For sure.
as usual, I'm running late. I got to get to work, fellas. So until we meet again, assalamu alaikum.
All right. Peace, brother.
All right, peace.
All right, brother.
All right, now.
Hey, Google, hang up. Google, disconnect. All right.
Trust me, it's reason for us here too. It's 32 degrees down here. Trust me, it's reason for us here too. It's 32 degrees down here in South Texas this morning.
Oh, is that normal, though?
That's cold for us.
Yeah. I thought it was like a little warmer in Texas than what it'd be up here in Illinois, man.
Yeah, usually it is. We just got a cold front that
that's cold.